This conference is being recorded. Only the main conference is recorded.
Hi, everyone. We're just going to give it a couple minutes to get people to jump on, and then we'll get started. All right, everyone. I'm going to get this call kicked off here. Welcome, everyone, to the Q1 WSC Speaker Series. The Women's Sales Council aims to sponsor and host one of these sessions once a quarter, mainly choosing various speakers that can either share their experiences or relatable guidance or perspective with the rest of the organization. So we're really excited to get this call together today. My name is Susan Coquillo. I'm a district manager in the Northeast. I am co-hosting today's speaker series with Kim Ross, who is an RDR in the Pacific Mountain region. Today, we are excited to have Brian Biliskis join us on the call. He is the Region Vice President of the Northeast. He has recently named the RVP, coming from the RDR position in the Mid-Atlantic market, also the Northeast, which he will speak to in a little bit. But Brian is going to share with us today his vast experiences with the organization and his overall career path thus far, and the importance of what he likes to call being more passionate than ambitious, which is a quote that he lives by and is something we thought was appropriate to name today's speaker series. So the structure of the call will allow for a Q&A session. So if you do have any questions, please feel free to ask them at that time, either within the chat or, obviously aloud. One thing to call out, and, again, thank you, Brian, for joining us today. The Northeast definitely experienced some excitement this week with a very large snowstorm that hit the Northeast. And with that, Brian unfortunately did lose his internet connection, so he is calling in via cell phone. And with that, I'm actually not going to put everyone on a mute, so that way, obviously, he's able to participate. So I just ask that everyone does mute their phones until we get to the Q&A session, just to eliminate any background noise. So before getting into Brian's career path and experience, I want to first officially welcome Brian to the call. Thanks for joining us today. And before getting into the main topic of the series, we just wanted to ask Brian if he could tell us a little bit about himself personally, as far as life outside of Mondelez and all that. So welcome, Brian.
Hey, thanks, Katie. Appreciate it. Humbled and excited to be here with all of you. As Katie mentioned, we've had a little crazy week, but nothing that we're not used to over here. So just incredible teamwork, and another example of the great teamwork that we have in the company on just sort of collectively getting through and navigating this really pretty robust storm, actually multiple storms that we've had here over the past 5-6 days. So the power's been in and out for a lot of our colleagues, but we just keep going, and we're cleaning up, and we've been able to keep everybody safe, number one, and number two, keep our customers in business. So those two big things have happened, and really just want to thank to anybody from the Northeast on the call for that. So, with that, I'll jump into it, Katie. So just a brief introduction to myself. Again, humbled and excited to be here. Appreciate the opportunity. So I am, I don't have Skype up, but I am on my cell, so I can follow along. But basically, my family is a big part of who I am, as I know all of you. So, my wife, Amanda, we've been married 8 years. She kind of keeps me in line, and we, are life partners here in everything we do. And so we have twins, William and Vivian, 5-year-old twins, boy-girl twins. So when I'm not chasing revenue, I'm definitely chasing them around. So, definitely very important to me and to everything I do, as I know anyone with children realize. And then my hometown is Chi-Town, so born and raised in Chicago. Very much a part of who I am. You see some pictures there of the beautiful skyline, and also some of the lifelong food debates on who's got the best hot dog, best pizza, etc. And then of course got to put something in there. The Cubs, I been following them and all Chicago teams for a while, and of course the year that I moved away to New Jersey is the year they broke a 108-year curse. So I don't know what that says about me, but that's a big part of who I am. And we currently reside in Morristown, New Jersey. We really love it here. It's been a great experience coming out here to the east, and we're really enjoying it. As far as just kind of outside of work, the work-life balance, integration, many different names for it. It's a constant, thing that we all work on. But for me, I guess the short of it is, if it's active, I'm in. So if it's an active, something that's active, I love to do it. So really like fitness and sports. So basketball was my sport growing up. Still love to try to play, although I'm a lot slower than I used to be. And then running. And, of course, I love to travel when we get a chance. It's a little tougher, obviously, with the kids, but we definitely try to make that a priority, whenever we can. And I need to do the fitness because I'm into food. So if you're into food, you got to be into fitness, I guess. And then the, leadership style piece, I've had different experiences, which I'll share with you in a minute. But for me, it comes down to, a few different key topics. The first one really being teamwork. No greater than this week here in the Northeast. It's all about teamwork. We're in a team sport. It's not an individual sport like golf, right? It's a team game, so to speak. So that's really important. And I think, focusing on what matters most is really important as a leader, as a manager, to help, focus our teams on, what matters most to the business that's going to move the needle, and kind of getting an A+ on 3 to 5 things versus a C- on 10 to 15 things. And then I think, being consistent while holding folks accountable is important. People want to know what they're going to get from you. Credibility. You don't want to be, wavering up and down. And then, of course, celebration. Celebration is so important to everything we do to keep people excited and ultimately recognize everybody for their incredible efforts. So that's really it as far as the intro, Katie. Should I get into the experiences now, you think?
Hey, Brian, this is Kim Ross.
Yeah. Oh, hey, Kim.
How are you? If you could then now take us through your career path, that would be great.
Okay, perfect. All right, thanks, Kim. So for me, I started with the company about 14 years ago, a little over 14 years ago as an intern in the Addison, Illinois customer service and logistics department. So it was not like an MDA thing at the time. It was just kind of an old school summer internship. And I originally had tried to get into sales. And at the time, there were no openings in the sales internship, so they made an offer on the customer service logistics side. And beggars can't be choosers, and I was definitely just wanted to get my foot in the door. And that was an opportunity that really enjoyed. I ended up coming back full time, spending 3 years in the CSNL organization, doing a few different roles across deductions, CSC, and then a VMI analyst on Kroger at the time, which is a really interesting position. So, it was great to get that kind of cross-functional, but at the time that was my only functional experience. And then always had the desire. I knew sales was going to be more what I was into, because when I was a VMI analyst, which essentially you're ordering the products for the customer, essentially, and managing the inventory, I was very much into trying to squeeze as much as I could out of those orders while keeping days of supply at a decent level. So I knew should be on the front line, kind of trying to drive the revenue piece. So I moved over into sales as an analyst role, which is just a fantastic role to really develop and understand the business through different lenses. So really enjoyed my time as an analyst for a couple of years, supporting the Midwest region at the time of Kraft Foods. And then from there, did a bunch of stints on the CBT side. So a CRM in the Midwest, along with CCM, had several accounts in the Wisconsin market. And then a CDM job on confections, which was at the time we were transitioning in Cadbury at the time. So it was a very interesting time. I think it was the first position at the time of that confectionery CDM role at Kraft. So it was very interesting. I got to kind of learn the Cadbury legacy side of things, but also help transition folks into the Kraft Foods side of things. So that was a very interesting time. And then from there, the company split, and had some different decisions to make, or really an opportunity to go be a district manager in Chicago. So I headed south side Chicago out to the west side of Chicago, and I think it was just probably my favorite experience I've ever had. Was a district manager. Just in the highest highs, lowest lows. Highest highs are the days where you just feel like you can't be stopped, and everybody's clicking and everybody's hitting their number and winning in store. And then the lowest lows are something like cyber attack happens, right, and all the chaos it creates that we just kind of tighten our bootstraps and figure out. But that's a great position. So I did that for a couple of years, and then from there a CBL position on confections. There's 25 customers in the Midwest, Meyer, Super Value, Hy-Vee, et cetera. And great experience on our confections business, which is a fantastic business. And then from there, the decision to relocate to headquarters in East Hanover and take a position on the strategy team, which was a great experience. And then from there, the RDR position in the Central PA and Maryland markets, which just is another tremendous job, similar to the DM, and that I really, really enjoyed. And then now, here I am right now on the Northeast. So that's my career in a nutshell. Just wanted to hit the highs there and not waste too much time on that. But that's my career in a nutshell.
So Brian, you've had a range of opportunities within the organization. Starting from logistics and then sales, and obviously our customer side as well as retail. What is your perspective, or at least share some insight on why you think it's important to kind of get a breadth of experience through the organization instead of just staying with one side of the business?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I think it's building a sustainable foundation, I think, is really, really important. And it's something that I've tried to pride myself on making sure to make that a priority. I think it's not a career ladder, right? It's a career web. And I think it's important to, take different risks, get out of your comfort zone. If you've had, predominantly retail positions, and there's different ways to skin a cat. So by no means is there one right way. But if you've had predominantly retail positions, you're taking something on the customer side, or if you've had, you haven't done a supportive role, like on the sales planning side, or an analytics role, taking that kind of leap into that side and not owning a number per se, but kind of owning a different piece of the business, definitely kind of stretches you out and makes your mind think in a different place. I think for me, I go back to that, the quote that we said. I just think I should definitely clarify that quote because, be more clarify, but that's really about building a foundation. I think we had a mute situation, but so that's really the importance is having this sustainable foundation and feeling grounded in that, so that you can really speak to different components of the business versus just kind of a silo of the business.
No, that's great. That's awesome feedback, Brian. I did want to elaborate on one of the things that you mentioned earlier about your career path. So we were at headquarters last week for our WSC meeting, and Matt Ecker was able to come in and spend some time with us. And one of the things that came up was really around our district manager role. I think a lot of folks are sometimes nervous about taking on that role and kind of, the expectations around being a district manager. And you mentioned earlier that it was one of your favorite roles. And so would love for you to share kind of your thoughts on why it was your favorite role and why you think people definitely should take advantage of being a district manager.
Yeah. So it's a great question. I think, for me, a couple reasons stand out why. I mentioned the highest highs, lowest lows, and I think that's good to experience that. But I think the biggest piece for me is finding your voice as a leader. That's the place to really test things out, get a handle on that, figure out what your voice is going to be like and what your leadership style is going to be like. But at the same time, run a important component of the business. Running a sales team is really important, and I think there's not very great. It's about executing with excellence, but at the same time, there's a lot of entrepreneurial spirit involved with that too. So I think it really there's an intersection of so much in the company, right? You have the CBT, you have the external customer because you're still externally facing across your stores in district. And then you also have logistics and everything there's a huge component of intersections there. So I think it just really broadens both your leadership style and how you're going to approach things, as well as getting a very deep-rooted understanding in our business. So, and it's just amazing to work with some incredible people, and I find that to be an incredible place for tremendous teamwork is in that district manager role.
Thanks, Brian. So Katie again. Just to switch gears a little bit, going back to just the different moves that you made between positions, both requiring relocation and those that you kind of moved around within the same geography. Just thinking about those moves, how would you say that impacted your personal life or family dynamic? What helped you kind of make those decisions as far as the right time to move your family? And even just to kind of elaborate on how even those new assignments that you chose to pursue without relocating impacted kind of your home life.
Yeah, so I think, everyone has, their own circumstances and different things to navigate. I would say for me personally, the timing's a big piece. So like earlier on in my career, the timing, some relocation opportunities were potentially there, and it just wasn't the right time for myself and my wife and our family. Later on, the timing clicked for us, and I think that's the key. Is just it may not, if it doesn't click in that moment, doesn't mean that it doesn't click forever. I think it's important to keep an open mind for the right opportunity and in the right time personally. So that's, I think, important. And then I think once it does click and you decide, I think it's, one learning is we all have our different ways of processing. So I kind of process things very much up front and vet it out a lot up front and go through that. And then once I'm kind of over that process. I'm all in, and I don't look back. My wife was all in up front, so she's all in right away. She's like, let's go. And it's a great mentality because it really helps us get through that beginning stage. But then once we get here, my mentality kind of helps us because, I'm already all in, and then she's starting to really go through her process of, oh, wow, what are we doing out here? This is crazy. So it's kind of, funny to look back at it. But, for us, it just really personally clicked at that time. And then professionally, the opportunity to come out east and come out to be a part of headquarters and experience that, and then really just be out east in this, great geography and area was important. So. And then I think you asked also about the different, job experiences, and I think it's, that's definitely a part of it too. Is once you get to where the new market that you're in, which is really important. I think can't underestimate how important it is to test your skills in different areas to really know how transferable those skills are, and then hone them along the way. I think that's really, really important, whether it's cross functions and cross geographies. It's a really important skill set, in my opinion. And I think, but once you kind of get the new job, I think we all know this. There's a process, right? The first 3 to 6 months, it's its own process, and then as you move through it, you start to, find a handle on different things. And I think, my wife always reminds me about that, because it's almost like you forget it when you're in it, and then she's like, oh, you're going through that same process again. And it's the same thing every new job, and I think that's having that partner is important. So that's kind of my spiel on the mobility piece.
All right, thanks, Brian. Back to me. I want to talk to you a little bit about importance of taking risk. You were going through your career path and spoke a lot about a lot of lateral roles that you've taken, and so kind of, really focusing more on your development than just kind of moving up within the organization. And so we'd really like to hear about, explain to us about how taking lateral positions are really important to your development.
Yeah, absolutely. So, in my career, I've done 3 laterals or step backs or, different varieties of those types of roles, developmental assignments. So, each one of those I can point to as like critical in my own development. So, for example, the first one was going from customer service to the sales analyst job. So it's kind of crossing over departments. Sometimes I think having that longer view on things that, you can't just come into a different department as, maybe a level you might want. You really got to get in there and kind of start fresh and really, prove yourself in that department. So sometimes that requires a lateral or developmental assignment that in the long term is going to benefit you personally and professionally as you develop. So I think that was one. And then the other piece was going from the sales planning to the district manager position, and that, that was really, really important, as I mentioned before, without, repeating it, just about the importance of that role. But I think having that rounded out experiences was really critical for me at that time, and really getting a more rooted understanding of that side of things was critical. And then the RDR piece was the other one that I did, coming from headquarters strategy to that RDR role. And I think just to tie it together as far as taking risks, but also just having that longer view, and I think I mentioned it in the takeaways, but I think zooming out, because sometimes we get stuck in, I'm in this 1-year blip or 2-year blip or whatever it is, and I feel stuck in this moment. But if you zoom out and you look 5 years in a 5-year time frame, and you look back at what you did or maybe what you're going to do, it doesn't actually seem that way, right? There's movement, there's development, there's different positions, and so I think it kind of all ties back to building the diversity of experiences, because when you think about taking risks, that's a big chunk of it. Zooming out and having perspective on the journey, not just the destination, is a big part of it. And those things, to me, kind of all tie back to the goal of trying to build the tools in your toolbox and really be armed with, what it takes to be successful across departments and functions and positions.
Awesome. Great. Thanks, Brian. So at this point, we're just in the interest of time, move this along to the Q&A part. So if anyone has any questions that we didn't cover with Kim and I, discussing some key things with Brian, please feel free to ask now.
Anything?
Hi, Katie. It's Darlene. I have one quick question for Brian. What is one characteristic that you believe every leader should possess?
Great question. Picking one is tough. That's a good one. I think, to be honest with you, if I had to pick one, because I'm kind of assuming, drive for results, all that kind of stuff's there, right? But I think empathy is really important, because I think having empathy to understand the position that your people are in is really, really important to being a successful leader. So I think, I often say, like, empathy with accountability is like a sweet spot. If you can really empathize with people and understand where they're at with their situation, but at the same time that, understand that we still have, business to run and things to do, and we have to be accountable for that. But I guess I would pick empathy as a really important one that I would highlight.
Thanks. Great question, Darlene, and great answer, Brian. Does anyone else have any questions?
Hi, Katie. It's Brittany. Just a quick question. Brian, you talked a lot about the different types of positions that you've held throughout your career, and what are some things that you would recommend as employees and individuals as we try to plan out our career path? What types of boxes should we look to check as we go through, or what types of things should we think about as we're thinking about what that next step should be? Maybe it's not like, the logical, planned out, like you said, siloed idea. So just looking for your thoughts around that.
Yeah, I think definitely kind of going through things with an open mind, and that you might have one plan in your head, but that there's always a job shadow, just kind of building that. Got another echo, and just having that network of folks to connect with was kind of where I was going with that. So building the network. We've got a mute problem. Are we there? Are we good? So building that network of folks, keeping an open mind. And then, job shadows or conversations cross-functionally, cross departments. I think those would be some of the things I would kind of highlight. I don't think there's any sort of silver bullet answer there. I just think that's kind of the approach I would take.
Great, thank you.
All right, with that, we've got a couple minutes left. Usually on these series, we ask our speaker to kind of put together top three takeaways that they want to offer to the group, just to kind of sum up everything that we talked about today and just something that we can all take with us. So, Brian, if you wouldn't mind taking us through just your top three takeaways for us.
Sure, absolutely. So we kind of, touched on these three things at different points. Really the first one, and I think I mentioned it, kind of all ties back to this, I think, in my opinion, but it's really about building a solid foundation through diverse experiences. I think that's just really critical to building that sustainable success over the long term, and taking some of those, in order to do that, I think we need to be empowered to take risks and get out of our comfort zone. So some of it is, it's kind of connected back through that, and that, in order to build that foundation, it requires some risks and comfort zone, getting out of our comfort zone. And then I think this one's really important too, is zooming out. I think we just sometimes, I remember being in customer service and logistics and feeling like I really want to get into sales now, and I felt like I was kind of there for a really long time, and it ended up being a tremendous experience that I've pulled from like numerous times on different roles throughout my career. And I just think zooming out to gain that perspective of the journey is important. So it's not just like this, you look back 1 year or you look back 2 years, you really got to look back 5 years to get that full feel of putting things back in perspective for you. So those would be kind of the three things I think, and they all kind of tie back to that breadth of experiences and trying to build that foundation.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Brian. We really appreciate you taking the time today to kind of take us through who you are and your career path thus far. So thank you so much for your time. And thank you, ladies, for all joining the WSC Women's Speaker Series.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate the time and look forward to connecting with all of you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a good weekend.